I told you 25 years ago that you could bet $1,000 on whether or not the Miami Dolphins would go 25 years without a playoff win, that probably would have returned 10 mil, if not more.
Oh, yeah.
Like if you could do that on Kalshi right now or on Polymarket right now and pick any team you want.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
Michael Jordan retired at the age of 30 in 1993. He missed the 93-94 season. Furthermore, he came back for 17 games in 1995 when he gave up baseball. And when I mean gave up baseball, he gave up baseball on March 18th and came back to basketball March 19th, which means no ramp up, no training camp, no nothing.
Pro basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
You ain't buying no tickets.
Who isn't?
You. You're not going to these
I'm a
games.
fan. Of course I'm not. There's a fan. What's wrong with you?
Yeah, but if you were a fan, I thought you were a fan of the Hurricanes. You're not anymore.
They told me.
They smashed
I told them to donate my tickets.
Yeah, so I get it. But the fans travel. They have money, believe it or not. It's amazing.
In this economy,
but they have money. I don't know. See what Kalshi says about the economy.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
I'm just saying, if I were a good NFL head coach, if I were a hot offensive coordinator, and that coaching cycle's going to come around, and they're like, hey, do you want the Giants job? Or do you want the Michigan job? I think the Michigan job is much better.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Gambling scandals, media deals, and Trump? We recap all the big things of 2025. FOS Today starts now. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Front Office Sports Today, your look inside the business and culture of sports. I'm Baker Machado here at Front Office Sports Studios in New York City, and this podcast is brought to you by Invesco QQQ. Changing the game has always been our game. You can access NASDAQ 100 companies in just one ETF, Invesco Distributors, Inc. Now, coming up, we recap some of the biggest stories in 2025 from FrontOfficeSports.com, so let's dive right into it. And joining me now to break it all down is Front Office Sports Editor-in-Chief Dan Roberts and our Senior Editor, Dennis Young. Gentlemen, great to have you guys here. Let's start with one of the big topics. Gambling scandals really sort of impacted every single sport from the NBA, Major League Baseball, and so on. Dan, how do you sort of look back at these scandals over the last year?
Well, look, I mean, arguably, one could say that it's surprising there haven't been more. Yeah. I mean, from the moment legalized sports betting became a thing in 2018 and we saw a state-by-state domino effect, you knew there were going to be scandals. Arguably, it took a little longer than I expected for this to come home to roost. Obviously, the NBA is the big one. We still have to see how all these play out. I mean, here we are talking about them at the end of the year. We haven't had resolutions. We haven't had punishments. We haven't had jail or prison sentences. But the NBA is the biggie. MLB, you've got intentionally thrown pitches. I mean, two pitchers who might never pitch again. And I think the straightforwardness of that one is the easiest to understand. In other words, they intentionally threw pitches a certain way because of prop bets, right? Pretty cut and dried. And the case materials have text messages showing that they did it. So that isn't a good one. The NBA one is kind of murkier. The poker games, the tanking. There's a joke in there about, someone leaked information that the teams were going to tank. I think anyone knew those teams were tanking. But there's just a lot in that stew. And not to mention multiple much smaller scale issues in college basketball. Mm-hmm. So I think we're going to see more of these in 2026. And mostly the leagues have said, as a case by case, yes, we care about the integrity of our sport. I'm not sure fans are that scandalized.
No, I agree with that about the fans. I think with the NBA, what I'm curious about, Baker, is what evidence do the feds have? I mean, there's in these prosecutions. We
still don't even know.
Right. There's these prosecutions. There's something called a speaking indictment. They don't have to use it. In the Terry Rozier and Chauncey Billups cases, on the gambling side, they didn't really use it, right? They just said, kind of take our word for it. It appears they have much more evidence, but it's not really clear what that evidence is or how strong it is. Rozier's lawyer is already kind of walking out these things of hey, Terry just told a buddy he wasn't playing. We can't be responsible for what the buddy did from there. The feds might have much more evidence that is, might make that look ridiculous. We don't know, but it'll be really interesting. I mean, if it ends up that, if the Rozier defense ends up being compelling in open court. Who knows? I mean, the NBA, they say they looked into this for 2 years. They look a little silly for this claim that Adam Silver said, oh, we don't have the power of the federal government to,
Which is why Rozier was cleared.
Oh, and they'd be very sensitive about saying he was cleared.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
They'd say they let him play. Now, of course, they're doing this, probably overcorrecting for their sins with this player named Malik Beasley on the Pistons, who, has never been charged, hasn't really been, faced any type of criminal allegation or suspension from the league, but the league is now, hesitant because of what happened with Rozier. Where he's playing, he got traded.
Once bitten.
Yeah, and so now, Beasley's lawyer has told reporter Colin Salal that, he's being unfairly punished for this. He's in purgatory. He may end up playing in Serbia.
But I do want to caveat here, and when we talk about all this, I just think of what does it mean for you, the sports fan, right? The average Joe sports fan. And I truly think maybe not so much, and this could apply to a lot of what we'll talk about today, but we're so close to it in the media, and I just think the average fan, now by the way, if it was LeBron, if it was Curry, and the irony is there is a LeBron angle here, it's LeBron associates. But, Chauncey Billups, Terry Rozier, and Damon Jones, and people go, who? So for the most part, as big as this scandal has felt to us, I don't think that Adam Silver thinks his, role as commissioner is in jeopardy over this. I don't think that this has necessarily transcended to the mainstream as much as you would expect.
Well, I guess, let me get into that, Baker, one thing. I think we ran a great story on this a couple weeks ago. Bradford Davis wrote that basically, I think correctly, that sports fans have metabolized a lack of competitive integrity through, tanking, intentional losing, even just teams being cheap, and that, that isn't, compromises the integrity of the product. So I completely agree that fans have totally already metabolized that not everything might be on the up and up in professional sports. Now, the one person, not the sports fan, that should be worried about the integrity is the sports gambler. Why? If there was sports,
so sorry, gamblers. Yes.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is look, Ohtani's translator was, actual game bets.
Yes. We didn't even mention that one. Yes.
Right, exactly. That feels like eons ago when that situation happened.
And there's no suggestion from the feds that anything untoward was happening in terms of competitive integrity. It seems like he was just addicted to betting on soccer or whatever. But go ahead.
But to my point, and I guess I want to bring this up because Dan says, how does this impact us, the sports consumer? You can make an argument that prop bets have proliferated so much, and you have allegations against Rozier literally impacting what he's doing on the court for this. You have college basketball, students allegedly doing this as well. I guess the claim that some sports fans might say, if this sports bubble bursts, it's because prop bets, prediction markets, all these other people are allowed to get in it, and it could manipulate the performances on the court or on the field. When people are spending tons of money to go to these games, how much of this is real?
And the irony there is that the rise of betting has ostensibly risen the value of the media rights.
Yes.
The companies and the leagues getting in with not just official partnerships with DraftKings, FanDuel, but the shoulder programming, the shows and the networks, and now ESPN Bet, right? And moving from Penn to DraftKings is part of what's in the stew of these mega huge increases in the media rights valuations. So now you're saying that
they're the biggest advertisers for these sports platforms.
Totally. But again, I just think most fans view it as one-offs.
I think Baker, it's not necessarily that worries about competitive integrity will be what takes it down from gambling, but that maybe just speaking as a sports fan myself, it sucks to think about sports that way. It's not fun. So if sports gets derivatized.
You don't think the allegations that the Blazers were benching their best players to tank to get a better draft pick is not going to.
But we already know that teams do that to the point of the Bradford column.
I mean, I think that's well taken, and I think it is something that leagues need to really assiduously clean up. But I think the Blazers were already losing on purpose, right? They I don't know if you need to be some guy loaded up on insider information to be this team was trying.
It's easy to identify. A team that's tanking.
Okay, 2026. Obviously, prediction markets have proliferated exponentially over the course of the last year. Who even knows what's going to happen next year, given the fact that now they want to get into the transfer portal market and all this other stuff? I mean, I just think we're opening up this area that we don't even know how this is going to look by the end of next
we can
year.
talk. I mean, and you've covered a lot of the prediction market stuff, Dan, and we can talk about this maybe when we look ahead more. But I mean, if we keep heading where we're headed with prediction markets, it's going to make gambling look like FDR level, big government, whatever. I mean, there's no. we think of gambling as something that really is lacking guardrails or whatever. I mean, how is the FBI even going to look into a prediction market scandal? I mean, is there any guarantee that like DraftKings and FanDuel, right? Like they said they were the victims in the Rozier case, and they like turned over all these data to these like independent integrity monitors and to the government. Do you see Kalshi doing that? Do you see Polymarket saying, "Oh, we have an independent auditor for all the action on our bet. We have know your customer laws."
No. No KYC. But again, they don't need to right now, so why would they? And so everything we're saying about the way the prediction markets currently operate and the playing it fast and loose, well, let's talk in 3 years. Because these companies right now are so tied to operating however they've been given express permission to operate by the current regime. So let's just remind everyone, Kalshi and Polymarket, they have this green light from the CFTC under Trump. Under Biden, the previous regime, they were told, get out of here, you can't operate in the US because you're so laissez-faire and unregulated, right? And so what happens when there's a new administration? And are we going to keep having a flip-flop every time where crackdown, loosen up, crackdown, loosen up? The latest news about that Kalshi actually filed to and wanted to do betting on transfer portal announcements. And the reason everyone freaked out was a player could say, I'm transferring to Stanford, and then the bet pays, and then he says, just kidding, I've changed my mind. Well, the bet's still paid. So the friends, the family, the associates could all know about it. Well, still, to play devil's advocate, even if you imagine this crazy Wild West landscape in which that is allowed and that launches, okay, I don't know. I mean, does that affect the sport itself? Does that affect your experience of watching the sport? Maybe, maybe not.
All right, we'll dive into a couple other headlines that we watched over the course of 2025, including college sports going nuclear, Trump, the sports president, and all the media deals. We recap more of 2025 when Front Office Sports Today returns.
When it comes to NAL, money does buy you talent, but it doesn't buy you chemistry, leadership, and wins. Look at St. John's, Kentucky, how they're battling. You need the right mix of experience, youth, and new blood if you're going to really tackle the transfer portal market in NIL and win consistently.
College basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
If I told you 25 years ago that you could bet $1,000 on whether or not the Miami Dolphins would go 25 years without a playoff win, that probably would have returned 10 mil, if not more.
Oh, yeah.
Like if you could do that on Kalshi right now or on Polymarket right now and pick any team you want.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
Michael Jordan retired at the age of 30 in 1993. He missed the 93-94 season. Furthermore, he came back for 17 games in 1995 when he gave up baseball. And when I mean gave up baseball, he gave up baseball on March 18th and came back to basketball March 19th, which means no ramp up, no training camp, no nothing.
Pro basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
You ain't buying no tickets.
Who isn't?
You're not going
I'm
to
saying
these
I'm a
games.
fan. Of course I'm not. There's a fan. What's wrong with you?
Yeah, but if you were a fan, I thought you were a fan of the Hurricanes. You're not anymore.
They told me. I told them to donate my tickets.
Yeah, so I get it. But the fans travel. They have money, believe it or not. It's amazing. They do. Well, somebody's got money.
In this economy,
but they have money. I don't know. See what Kalshi says about the economy.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
Welcome back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today. I'm Baker Machado here in New York City, and this podcast is brought to you by Invesco QQQ. And football, changing the game begins with rethinking it, like rethinking how players work on their game. With wearable tech, advanced analytics, AI, and more, that same innovative thinking that changes the game could also change your portfolio. And Invesco QQQ gives you access to the innovators who are rethinking the world, so let's rethink possibility. And of course, we're recapping all the big stories from frontofficesports.com with our editor-in-chief, Dan Roberts, and our senior editor, Dennis Young. And guys, let's talk about college sports now, specifically football, going really nuclear. You have years of litigation and lobbying about NIL. You have the House settlement this last year. You have a record amount of college coaching buyouts this last year. You have drama over the college football playoff. I mean, Dan, how would you sort of assess this year in college sports?
Well, we were separately talking about betting, and in some ways, if you track the whole history here, even if you just go a decade back, it feels to me like the same progression we saw with sports betting. There was all this momentum and chatter for years about paying the players, saying college athletes are basically professionals already. They're professionals in everything but name. And I remember covering the Ed O'Bannon push for all this, right, at the end of amateurism, and it happened. We did it. We're paying the players. Well, you reap what you sow, right? So, yes, there's allowing NIL deals, and there's a lot of misconceptions about that, really. It just means they can do business deals. They can do endorsements. Johnny Football could have signed autographs and gotten paid for it in this new era. But there's also revenue sharing directly. So two things happening at once, where programs are directly sharing revenue that they get with the players. Well, how do you satisfy that with Title IX and rectify that? There's now a whole new set of questions that have been opened by opening the Pandora's box of paying the players. And I think that's the biggest change. Now, in tandem, and there's some overlap and blurring here, you have conference realignment. I mean, at breakneck pace, the conference names mean nothing anymore. The regionality of them. 2 California schools in the Atlantic Coast Conference.
Well, I mean, we had for years and years, I mean, kind of what Dan is talking about, of this, crying about it will be the end of college sports popularity if we pay, quarterback. And of course, college sports, not only was it not the end, it's way more popular than it ever was before. I mean, college football is way more, not just like, oh, it's on TV, the ratings are up, the attendance is up, the money is up. It's way more culturally relevant than. Sorry.
No one cared about amateurism.
Yeah, and if that you could argue amateurism was holding the sport back. It was holding college sports back. I mean, college football is now definitively the number 2 sport in this country behind the NFL, and that's in its Wild West, unregulated, allegedly. Oh, it's what a mess this is, and I think a little bit it is amusing to watch. They said, all right, we're gonna have this court settlement, the House settlement. Well, most of the House settlement has not been enacted and maybe never will be. A lot of it is either tied up in court or the colleges can't agree to enforce it. They said, oh, okay, we have a Republican Congress and a Republican president. We can jam through kind of this restrictive thing. Well, breaking news, Congress couldn't pass a bill.
Sure.
Can't believe that. Can't believe that happened.
As of us filming this, they still haven't.
And I'll totally feel comfortable saying they never will. And so the reaping what they're sowing is a little bit to me, Dan, that they're reaping their sowing of waiting so long to do this that now they're like, oh no, there's no structure. Well, because you failed to put the structure in place that was legal.
Speaking of politics, let's talk about the president here, because he has become, and I think he uses this moniker, the sports president.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that he has gone to more sporting events than I think any sitting president, maybe even since Obama. On top of that, he's definitely put his thumb on the scale of a lot of these media deals, from ESPN to the NFL and all these other ones. I mean, how would you sort of assess the president in the sports world, Dan?
I think, well, one thing's for sure. I think he is the sports president, and calling him that isn't necessarily and shouldn't be taken as a rah-rah political commentary. I mean, it doesn't mean that you think that's so great. It's a fact. It's a fact, right? And I also think there's been a cultural change or an opinion change in terms of, like, yes, he's constantly going to sports events, and that used to be a ding on, like, Obama is like he golfs too much, or maybe he was on bike. It's like, no, I think there's a lot of people that like this because they think that if I agree with his views, then I want him involved in all forms of American life and culture, right? Like, I mean, the trans athlete bill is an example of something that isn't necessarily cutting along the lines you'd expect, right? There's a lot of people who, they like what he's done there and they like the bill, even if they don't support Trump in other ways or they're not conservative in other ways. So it's not all so black and white, but I do think that now everyone in the sports world has to have an idea of the specter behind them, the Trump looming behind them.
Yes, an accommodation plan. Every executive in sports has a plan for how they're going to handle. They have a contingency on a tweet.
Right.
I do think that...
Is Trump going to like this thing that your league's about to do?
I think sports are such a good way to understand the difference in the second Trump administration and the first Trump administration, in that in the first Trump administration, the sports headlines around Trump were, oh, he's calling NFL players cowards. He's getting into it on Twitter with Steph Curry, and it's
just vitriol with nothing
hot.
behind it.
It's hot culture war stuff, and it was really attention grabbing and made people uncomfortable. But it was a little bit of culture war air and gas or whatever. The second Trump administration, the Velociraptor has figured out how to open the door. Okay, well, like now he's like the Netflix ESPN. I'm sorry, the NFL ESPN merger. depends on me. The Warner Brothers Paramount thing depends on me.
The success of the World Cup coming up depends on him.
He's like, wait, no, I have actual major
Paramount and UFC and the WWE.
Legislative and
Dana
economic
White's
power. And he's using it far more intentionally this time than he was last time.
And how about PGA Tour and Live? We thought there'd be action there. But
well, exactly. And in many of these cases, I mean, look, he's become very close with Infantino, the leader of FIFA.
Peace Prize.
Dana White with UFC. Now we're going to have a White House a fight on the White House lawn. Like all these sorts of things. I think are really fascinating in terms of just like how you've seen leaders of sports organizations, even the owners of the Commanders, having to get closer to him just to get approval for certain things.
Totally. I mean, by the way, Donald Trump, recipient of the FIFA Peace Prize.
Yes,
Don't forget that new superlative. And how many mega global stage events are happening during the Donald Trump second term? An Olympics, or will it end up being 2 Olympics?
Yes.
The World Cup being hosted in the U.S.
Just in the U.S., I mean, there's like the Olympics, there's the Rugby World Cup. There's,
It's one thing for the president to go to the Army-Navy game and wave and get saluted and applauded and maybe part booed, but this is like, constantly representing the country on the world stage at sports events. And I also think that it's tied, it's happening in tandem, and this isn't credited to him, with sports just becoming much more obviously tied to the whole culture. I mean, this is what we covered at FOS,
Or like the last monoculture, right? Like there's no, TV or book or movie that is a monoculture, but there's the NFL.
Game of Thrones, Succession, Billions. Right now, it's sports.
It's the NFL,
I'll give you the last word on this. What else do you think about with Trump so far here?
I mean, I think we can talk about this in the look ahead. I mean, we didn't talk about immigration at all, but like that is a huge, huge issue in sports,
especially
right? Like it's international events. If he continues this hard line on immigration, I mean, that's going to be a massive, the World Cup, then the Olympics, and even like in professional and college sports.
Yeah, big one. And by the way, just to steal the last word, I also alluded to the golf stuff.
Right.
When are we going to see? I mean, Trump famously said, "I could solve that in 10 minutes."
I know, that's a great point.
None of us believe there's ever going to be any merger.
How long has that been?
But let's just do what happens with Live in the PGA.
Dennis Young, Dan Roberts, great stuff. Thank you guys so much. And of course, you can see more of the big stories from 2025 over at frontofficesports.com. And coming up, we're telling you all the big events happening on Christmas Day. Don't go anywhere.
For those of you who have never watched, we could easily just call it true or false, but we got creative because that's what we do. We create content here on the show. We call it buy or sell. Tucker will lead the Bucks in touchdowns this season. I never, ever would have thought that this would even be a buy or sell, but here we are.
It had to be frustrating last night that he stole the one, right? Got the goal line carry there. I don't know when he became the goal line back, but he is. That being said, this is a pretty easy buy for me. I mean, he's got 6. Rashad White has 4. You want to guess how many Bucky Irving has, Craig? How many touchdowns do you think Bucky Irving has this year? You're close. You're close. He's got 1.
Yeah, easy buy. Yeah, they're using him near the goal line too. I did see some metrics that said that Irving has a hard time getting in the end zone, by the way. When it's close, he usually scores from outside. So it does appear that Tucker will lead the team in touchdowns this season. All right, 2 players that are going to be drafted inside the top 5 in fantasy. I probably could say, honestly, George, inside the top 3 in the first round of fantasy football next year. Jahmyr Gibbs will have a higher ADP than Bijan Robinson next season.
Gibbs, I think, is close to your number 1 next year. I do. I think we'll trust him more than McCaffrey because he stays healthy. I'm assuming PPR when he catches so many balls, so does McCaffrey. But we love the Detroit offense here. I don't think you can go wrong with any of these guys, by the way. All right, I'd be happy with all of them. But I think me personally, if I had, it was Gibbs, McCaffrey, which I think is really your 1-2 there, I'm going Gibbs.
No, and I think I think next year's number 1 fantasy draft pick, it's not that it's going to be bad. I just think there's a lot of variation going into next year. I could see any of 3 or 4 players as of right now going number 1. I would have said Jonathan Taylor, but he slowed down.
Fantasy Sports Today. Friday, starting at 3 p.m. Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today. I'm Baker Machado, and today's episode is brought to you by the Apple Sports app, the fast and simple way to follow the games that you care about. With real-time scores, live stats, play-by-play, and betting odds, Apple Sports gives you everything you need and none of the clutter. Personalize the app with your favorite teams and leagues. You can track matchups with live activities and even get instant updates on your iPhone lock screen or even your Apple Watch. That is the battle for the NFL playoff spots continue to heat up. Apple Sports keeps you locked in on divisional races and wildcard pushes with scores, stats, and standings, along with all the drama happening in college football, the NBA, and more. And joining me now to chat what we're watching is FOS producer John Shames. John!
Ho, ho, ho.
Ho! Yes, Christmas right around the corner, Shames.
We're right here, and you know what they say, Baker, Christmas is big business,
yes,
and that's why I'm wearing my Santa hat with bells, by the way.
Yes, yes.
And this Sports is Big Business merch. If you or, a friend really loves the business of sports and wants to get some merch that reflects that, make sure you go to the FOS merch shop and get yourself one of these.
I love that, James. Okay, so let's talk about all the big stuff that we got on Christmas Day. Obviously, you got tons of time with your family, but there's so many great games to watch. And let's start in the NFL. 2 big games over on Netflix. Let's start with the first one. You got the Cowboys and the Commanders. That game, 1 p.m. Eastern time over on Netflix. I mean, this seemed like originally this would have been a huge matchup, but both these teams sort of languishing right now.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the Commanders have just been a massive letdown this year, and big part of that is because Jaden Daniels has been injured for much of the year, but even when he was healthy, they weren't really looking, certainly not like they were taking that step that we expected them to take last year after their great run. And then the Cowboys, too, no Micah Parsons, obviously, anymore, and just a few more injuries to that team, so haven't really clicked necessarily yet. But still an intriguing matchup. It's the first game of Christmas Day, year 2 of Netflix.
Absolutely. And the second game over on Netflix, the Lions and the Vikings. The Vikings just got eliminated from the playoffs with their loss last week, and the Lions still fighting for one of those last playoff spots.
Totally. And again, another team that in the NFC that we thought maybe would kind of arrive in full this year, and it really just hasn't kind of all meshed together yet. I'm still a big believer in the Lions. They just have too many elite offensive pieces, to not be able to make a run here. So I expect them to win this game and probably put them in prime playoff position.
And then we have the nightcap, which is the very first time Prime Video is getting a Christmas Day game. This in at 8:15 p.m. Eastern time. The number 1 seeded Broncos, which not a lot of people had on their bingo card.
You can smile.
I do feel good. But they're going to Kansas City, but no Patrick Mahomes in this one after he just tore his ACL. So the Chiefs now also not going to the playoffs for the first time since 2014, which is also crazy. But this still could be a good matchup.
Yeah, Baker, it's funny because in the beginning of this year, if you looked at this game, you would have said, wow, the Chiefs are going to be the draw. And then the Broncos, hopefully they'll be competitive enough. And you look up and it's kind of been a role reversal. And now the Chiefs are no longer going to be competitive enough without Patrick Mahomes. But the thing that's interesting here, we've done had a lot of conversations at FOS around the ratings draw for the Chiefs this year. I believe they're the most watched team or the top 2 most watched team.
Next to the Cowboys, yeah.
So we'll see how that affects, a Christmas window that probably would have gone bonanza with ratings otherwise if it was any indication of what we saw on Thanksgiving and that week and how well those games performed. It's just probably not going to hit quite the same.
And we'll see also if Taylor Swift goes to that game. She hasn't been to a lot of Chiefs games so far this year. All right, also, it's not just football on Christmas Day. We also have the NBA, which traditionally always owned Christmas Day. That's what LeBron James at least claims. And look at all these games we got. Cavs versus the Knicks. That's at 12 noon Eastern on ABC ESPN. Then we got the Spurs and the Thunder at 2:30 Eastern on ABC ESPN. Rockets and Lakers at 8 p.m. Eastern. And then the Timberwolves and Nuggets. That's the late night game at 10:30 Eastern. All those games, of course, on ABC and ESPN. I mean, all these matchups are amazing. These are all top teams in their conference.
Incredible. I mean, look, if the NBA can't put together a decent ratings poll after stacking 4, or realistically, I mean, it's 8 of the best teams in the league right now going at it. And we just said that the NFL games are not necessarily the best slate here. So if the NBA is not able to carve out their own substantial portion of the Christmas Day intrigue from a ratings perspective, I think it's a sign that, the NBA is really potentially not on its way out because I think they're going to keep playing, but just in the zeitgeist. And
totally, because the matchups here are better matchups than you're getting on the NFL. So I guess it gets to the larger question. Who owns Christmas Day?
Oh man, I think it's the NFL right now with a sizable lead, and which is crazy because it was the NBA for decades on Christmas, and the NFL it's been maybe 3 or 4 years at this point. So it's right? Or is it last year was the first year?
Either way, I feel like we're going to be comatose from so much food we're eating that day. What an amazing lineup of things for us to watch all Christmas Day.
Certainly.
James, thanks so much and happy holidays, man.
You too. Ho, ho, ho.
Yes, indeed. Ho, ho, ho. And this segment was presented by the Apple Sports app. Now, you can download it for free at the App Store, and of course, stay locked into every single game that's happening on Christmas Day. And that's going to do it for this edition of Front Office Sports Today. Don't worry, we'll be previewing everything happening in 2026 and ahead next week. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.